The Easy Gourmet is sponsored by The Scoreboard Sports Bar and Grill. Come visit us at 15 Middlesex Canal Park in Woburn, 781-897-4000.
Old Town Liquors on 286 Cambridge Street in Burlington off of Route 3A. The purveyors of fine wine, beer, spirits, specialty meats, cheese, and prepared foods.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Easy Gourmet. I'm your host and chef Vinny Felici. Nice to have you in my kitchen today. Today we're going to be doing a couple of simple recipes, a little work intense but not really difficult. We're going to be doing a chicken parm. I know everybody knows what chicken parm is. We're going to be doing eggplant parm, but it's going to be a little different version of that, the Easy Gourmet version. We're going to make individual servings of eggplant parm, so you can serve those, you could serve those as an appetizer to each individual person if you were having company. And we're going to have a pesto we're going to make from basil, some fresh basil, that we're going to drizzle over the side of that. So why don't we get started today? I have a couple of eggplants. I'm not sure if I'm going to use one or two. We'll just see how we're going here today. If the eggplant isn't as fresh as these are, I think these are hothouse eggplants, but if they're not as fresh as these are, you would slice them, put some salt on the top of them and sweat some of that, some of the juices out of them. That gives it that bitter taste. But these are pretty fresh. These, I think, were grown in a hothouse, so I think we're going to go with these today. We're going to skip that step. We're not going to soak them in salt. So why don't we get started? These are washed, so what I want to do is I just want to cut those in about 1/4-inch circles. We'll get rid of the tip. We don't need that for anything. You can tell by the smell too as you're cutting this if it has that soury kind of tannic smell. These seem to be really pretty good. I got these yesterday at a local farm stand. So what we're going to do is we're going to just figure out, we're going to parm these like in a stack. We're going to fry them first, bread them, and egg them and bread them first, but we're going to make individual stacks like that, sauce in between, cheese in between. So one of these will be for one person, and that makes a nice little fancy appetizer. So why don't we see how we're doing here. You want to start off with the larger ones on the bottom and then the smaller one on top. And I can do something like that. So maybe I'll do half of the next one so we can get 3. So a couple more slices. And I say you want about 1/4-inch thick. And the largest one on the bottom. I suppose it's like a puzzle. Somewhat like a puzzle. You want them kind of roughly the same size. Probably those won't end up in the same place after we fry them, but that's okay. Just to get a rough idea. And I think that's all we'll do today. We'll just put that aside. So now, what we want is we need 3 containers. 1 for flour, 1 for crumbs, and 1 for egg. So I have 4 eggs here. I just use 3. I like to break the eggs on, I don't know if you've noticed on the show, I like to break the eggs on the flat surface rather than a corner so shells don't get inside the egg. Sometimes you don't know how clean the outside of an egg is. Just beat that a little, maybe with a little bit of water to kind of loosen that up a little. Maybe we'll go with a 4th egg. kind of beat that till the white and the yolk are incorporated. And just put that into there. Just wash my hands quick. And then we want flour into the first container. Any kind of flour will do. This is just regular white all-purpose flour. And just regular breadcrumbs, whatever you have handy. I'm using unflavored breadcrumbs. I like to flavor them myself. So a little bit of breadcrumbs. And I mix a little bit of grated cheese with the breadcrumbs. Nothing measured here, just it's all kind of generic and all eyeball. It's about 3 tablespoons into about 3 cups of breadcrumbs, but we may have a little extra left over. It's not a big deal. Then we got a tray set up with a cookie rack, so that way when the eggplant is coated, the air will come underneath and dry it, and it'll fry easier. A little salt and pepper into all 3. About a teaspoon or so into each. And then you just mix that up. And we go into the flour first with our eggplant. You see, you have to get an assembly line going on here, but it works. A little bit of egg, a little bit of breadcrumbs, you can just toss a few of those in. And you don't have to be too fancy here. You might want to knock off some of the excess flour because it could get a little too gummy. Just kind of, that's all you have to do. It's very easy. We're going to be doing this with the chicken also. We're going to change all this out because we don't want to have any cross-contamination. Just toss these over. And toss these into here. If you wanted to flavor this with a little more salt and pepper, you could, or with the dashes of hot pepper, you could do that. You can actually do this any way you want. We're just kind of going plain today. You know, just regular plain breadcrumbs. Like I say, I like to use the unseasoned. It's just something I prefer. I like to let the sauce and the cheese do the flavoring for me. But if you wanted to put some dried herbs in or some fresh herbs, you can certainly do that. Maybe we'll do that when we do the chicken. Yeah, we're almost done here. More. And that's all you have to do. As I said, what I like to do is kind of have air going around all of this. That way this dries and they fry pretty good. So why don't we take a break for a moment while I clean this up and we get everything ready for our chicken cutlet.
Old Town Liquors on 286 Cambridge Street in Burlington off of Route 3A. The purveyors of fine wine, beer, spirits, specialty meats, cheese, and prepared foods.
Okay, we are back, and so I have some new flour, a new set of egg wash, more egg wash, and some unflavored crumbs. So again, we're going to add a little bit of cheese to the crumbs. And again, there's about 4 cups of crumbs there, 3 or 4 tablespoons of cheese. I have a little bit of basil that I'm going to chiffonade, which all you do is roll up some leaves, get rid of the stems. Just roll that up kind of like, roll it up like that, and just sliver that up. I'm just going to add that to the crumbs to give us a little extra zing to the chicken, which we actually haven't prepared yet, but what we'll do is just put that in there. You don't want to chop the basil, because if you start chopping it and mincing it, it's going to turn black. So all you want to do is just slice that very thin. And I think we're ready for our chicken, which I have in the refrigerator. Just regular chicken breasts. You might want to take this excess fat off if you have any, because that's kind of loaded up with water, and when that hits the fry pan with hot olive oil, it's going to splatter. So those little pieces you probably want to take off. So what I want to do first, I'm just going to put that on our board to keep it clean, as clean as possible. Take one of the chicken breasts, and we're going to cut these into cutlets. You could try to pound this out into a big cutlet and then cut it in half. But the only thing is, when you kind of pound this out with a meat mallet or a rolling pin or whatever method you're going to use, it could kind of break it apart, and the ends will kind of break apart, and you won't have a really nice, complete circular cutlet. So what I like to do is I like to at least cut them in half or thirds if I can, if my knife is sharp enough. So to do that, and I think we've done this on the show before, is you want to have the piece of meat, whether you're working with steak, whether you're working with chicken cutlet, chicken breast, as we are today, we want to have that close to the end of our cutting board. That way, the handle of our knife is over the floor. That way, we're not here with our knife on a 45-degree angle trying to cut a cutlet. We want to bring it back to the edge of the cutting board. Have your knife parallel to the cutting board. Don't be afraid to, if your knife is very sharp, you don't have to be afraid to do this. And just push that knife right through the cutlet. And that's all you have to do. And there's one. You know, that's actually, this knife is really sharp. I sharpened it before the show. And I think I might leave these. I won't even pound these out, because I think if you did that, you'd damage them, and you'd have an uneven cutlet. This is pretty much a 1/4 inch all the way through. So that's one. And like I say, your knife glides right through it. You want to use a regular knife, not a serrated knife. Serrated knife, sometimes you have difficulty getting through raw meat with a serrated knife. I don't know if you can see that. See how thin that is? So anybody can do this. If the Easy Gourmet can do it, anybody at home can do it. So we'll just, I think I'm going to take that piece off. This is that little fatty piece I was telling you about. If you're going to grill this on a grill, you could leave it. But what you want to do, when you're going to drop, like I say, when you're going to drop this in hot oil, you don't want to have a lot of that on there, because you're going to get a splatter. So I'm going to get rid of that too. Hold on a second. Yep. This guy's giving me a tough time. That's going to make the blooper show. Okay, again. We'll do that again. And I think we can do that one more time. Just use your other hand to steady that. Like I said, this is very easy. Very, very easy. I'll just do a couple more off this one, because I think that will be a whole lot more than we need today. Sometimes on the inside of the chicken breast, you get a little bit of the breastbone. You want to take that off too. Sometimes they use at the, where they process the chickens, sometimes they go through like, hundreds of chicken breasts at a time, and some of the bones get stuck. It's not a big deal. You can just take those off. And maybe one more. Okay, I'll just put this one aside. And so all we want to do, just let me wash my hands off a little. What we want to do is we want to salt and pepper these, then we can toss them in the flour, then the egg wash, and then the breadcrumbs. So here we got a little bit of salt and pepper, as much as you want. There's no measurements here. There's no measurement on the Easy Gourmet today, especially today. And salt those as much as you want. Both sides. Always do both sides. And remember too, the cheese we use, the Romano cheese that is grated that we threw into the crumbs, that has a little salt too. So you want to be careful as far as, controlling your salt. And that's another reason for me using unflavored crumbs, because I control it all. Some of the flavored crumbs, not only do they have herbs and everything else, there's actually salt in there. So that's what you want to watch out for. Did I salt these already? Yes, I did. Okay. Now we want to just flour these. Again, the same way like we did our eggplant. You can do a couple at a time. And just kind of hit those together to get the excess flour off. And toss those in the egg wash. Actually, I'm calling it egg wash. All it is beaten egg. That's all. If some people don't like to use the egg yolk because they don't like it, or they think it's a little too many calories, you can always just use the egg white. But you need something to create that glue with the flour to have the breadcrumbs stick. Let me get the last two. I can taste these already. And just strip off the excess egg. And that's all you got to do is that. This breadcrumb mixture is crumbs that I just used my own leftover bread. And what I did do is I had some bread that had some, and I can smell it in the crumbs, I had some bread that had some sesame seeds on it. And that gives that a nice little layer of extra flavor that regular white bread doesn't have. You know what you always could do, if you had a little jar or a little container of sesame seeds, you can grind that up with your breadcrumbs, which is always kind of a nice thing. You're looking for layers of flavor. I mean, I know salt and pepper always adds flavor to everything, but sometimes you're looking for depth of flavor, and something like those sesame seeds add a little bit of extra flavor to your dish. You could always use Parmesan cheese in this mixture too. I like Romano. I think it's a little less invasive. To me, Parmesan's a little stronger. Romano is sheep's milk, and it's just a little more milder than. You could, but like I say, you can mix the two. There's no rules on the Easy Gourmet. So I don't have any rules. And the same thing goes for these cutlets also. You want to let them dry on your rack for a few minutes before you start to cook. That way the bread gets all absorbed into the egg. And that's pretty much it. These are all kind of obscure sizes, but that's okay. So why don't we take a moment while I wash up. And what I'm going to do in this wash up period is I'm going to clean up a little. I'm going to get I have 2 fry pans going, and we'll show everybody how to put the whole thing together. So here we are back with all our chicken and our eggplant. Our eggplant, like I say, is pretty much nice and dry. I don't know if you can get a close-up of that. As you can see, actually, here's probably one of the last ones they did. See how that's kind of, I'm not sure if the camera can pick that up, but that's a little more on the yellow side, where this is a little, you can see it's kind of dry already. And that's more on the, I guess you could say, tan side. And like I say, the air gets underneath all this and dries this on the food, and that way when it fries, you're frying something that's a little more on the dry side than the wet side. So why don't I bring that over to the stove, which I have 2 pans already heating to a little bit above medium. We may have to play with that gas, that flame, once we get the oil into the pan. We're just going to be using regular olive oil today, not extra virgin. To me, it's a little overwhelming, even though these are, I guess, quote unquote, you could say Italian dishes. But I think extra virgin olive oil is just kind of a little overwhelming for this. And where the chicken is so delicate and the eggplant is so sweet, I think you're going to mask some of that natural flavor in both things. So I think we just want to go with regular just pure olive oil today. Canola would be fine too, but I think a little bit of that oil taste is fine. Canola wouldn't give you any taste at all. It's pretty much neutral. So we want about 1/4 inch or so, maybe a little more in each pan. We want to heat that up. Always have your pans preheated before you put oil in, unless, if you recall, one of the first shows we did shrimp scampi, I always start that in a cold pan. I think starting that in a cold pan, I've done it many different ways. I like to do it that way because it sweats some of that. I don't want to get into those recipes because these are 2 new recipes today, but it sweats some of the vegetables before you add the shrimp, and that's why I like to do that in that particular recipe. So I think we're getting pretty good here. And the way to tell if these are ready, you got to give it a few seconds. You drop a few things in. If they start to sizzle, you know you're ready. So these aren't ready yet, but they're pretty close. Let's see. Well, that's pretty close. I think we can get started with this one. And you don't want to overcrowd your pan. I mean, don't have one on top of the other, and we don't want to fry these too quickly because we want them to cook all the way through. I'm going to do the chicken in the other pan. And I think we're ready on that one. This is the luxury about having gas, is it heats up fairly quickly. I'm not sure how those glass top stoves are. I know they're very easy to clean, but I don't know if they heat up as quick as gas. And again, you don't want to extremely overcrowd the pan, just enough that everything has room to cook evenly. So you got to remember, once you fill your pan with food, no matter what it is, you're going to lower the temperature of the pan. So you don't want to overwhelm it with all kinds of different things, and then the food will be steaming instead of searing as it's supposed to be doing. That's going to be a while. This is coming out. This is good. This is coming. This is nice. Really nice. Just make sure things aren't sticking. Actually, I am using a non-stick pan for no particular reason. It just happens to be non-stick, and this is not a non-stick pan. So when you're using the pan that doesn't have a non-stick coating, you definitely want to make sure that it is heated up, or things potentially could stick, even with oil. And as we continue on.
The Easy Gourmet is sponsored by The Scoreboard Sports Bar and Grill. Come visit us at 15 Middlesex Canal Park in Woburn, 781-897-4000.
And we are almost done. Do not use the same cookie rack for your finished product as you would. Just get a new clean rack. If you don't have that, you can always wash that in between. And I think we're ready to remove these. We're ready to remove the chicken. You can see that. See that little extra basil gives you a nice little look there too. One thing about using this rack instead of using paper towels is, well, you're saving on paper towels, but things tend to drip better on here. And you can see how nice that looks. Why don't we shut this fan off? We don't need it. Let's see how nice those came out, nice and brown. Just another second on this side. Get this pan out of the way. Shut that off. And that's it. We are ready to assemble. I'll just leave those alone now because they're very hot. Right now we have our oven preset at 325. And we don't want it any higher than that because all we want to do is have the sauce and the cheese all get incorporated with the eggplant and chicken. We don't want to, I mean, this is already cooked. All we want to do is kind of have all the flavors blend together. Let's see. So what we have, maybe we'll do our chicken first. We have a little bit of sauce that I have already pre-made. Actually, I'll let you in on a secret. I made it over the weekend. I just reheated it today, but that's okay. You can always use a favorite sauce, whatever you want to use. You don't have to be really crazy. It's just plain, all it is plain tomatoes. There isn't any meat in this. Just plain tomatoes and some herbs. And what I like to do is when I'm doing chicken parm, oh, forgot, the cheese. I like to use the white mozzarella instead of the hard mozzarella. I think it melts better and it's creamier. So that's what we're going to use that today. And what I like to do first, when I'm going to do the chicken parm first, doesn't really matter. Just put a little bit of sauce at the bottom of a baking dish or a pie dish, whatever you have handy. It doesn't really matter. Then you can lay the chicken on top. Assemble it the way you want. If you had a square dish, you could cut the chicken parms into different sizes to fit your rectangular dish. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter at all. I think we'll just go with the one layer today. And what you want to do is you get a little bit of the cheese. You just slice those into slices. You can use a knife or use a cheese. I like to use, when I'm cutting this cheese, because it's so soft, you need a cheese slicer or one of those knives that looks like a chef's knife, but there's holes through it. You might want to use something like that because then the drag on it or the friction is less and you're able to get nice thin slices. So we just want a little bit of sauce in each one of these. And don't overwhelm this. You're just trying to enhance this whole dish. You're not trying to overwhelm the whole thing. Just a little bit of sauce and a little bit of cheese on top. I love this cheese. This cheese is just so soft and creamy. I don't use the other mozzarella anymore. You can finish that off with a little bit of Romano cheese. Again, if you prefer Parmesan, that's fine too. Just finish that off. That's all you have to do. You could put that under the broiler if you want, but to melt the cheese really quickly, and it'll brown a little bit. But I like to put it in the oven at 325, just so the sauce will soak into the chicken and the cheese will melt nice and easily. So we can put that into a 325-degree oven, and now we'll work on our eggplant. Pretty much the same technique, although we're trying to do a little different thing. What we're doing here is of course you could make eggplant parm in a rectangular baking dish like this, but what we're doing is we're making individual eggplants. And if you were having company, one of these per person would be a nice little start to the meal. So try to find the largest ones to put at the bottom. And this is a little work intensive here. Probably need a regular spoon instead of a ladle. Well, I have a smaller ladle. So you just want a little bit of sauce on each one. And then a slice of cheese. And we're just going to build those up into little pyramids. That's probably a little too thick that time, so I'll just need a little bit. And then get the next piece of eggplant. I don't know if we can't really get a sight on that yet, but you'll see in a minute. And you can go as high as you want on these. Maybe you should have went in. These should have been the bottom ones. But you can always switch those out if you had to. A little bit of sauce. And a little bit of cheese. Maybe I'll make a couple more. Let's see here. Maybe we're not going to go really high with them because they might tip over, so we'll just make 6 of them today. A little bit of cheese. Let's see, we go over here. I need a little bit of sauce on these. I think I skimped on that one a little bit. And just finish those like that. Maybe we'll just top it off with just a little bit of, just another little piece of cheese, just on each. We're going to be drizzling some pesto on these to finish them off, and as soon as I get this in the oven, I'll show you how to do that. And maybe just a little bit of grated cheese. There's no real instruction here, no real measurement, just kind of improvise. Maybe I'll finish this, put a little sauce on here too on the top one. And as I said, as an hors d'oeuvre, this is going to look great on the dish. I don't know if you can have our viewers see that. While I just clean up for 1 minute. Okay, so we're ready to put these in the oven at 325, so all that cheese will melt nice and slowly and all that sauce will absorb into the eggplant. You need about, I don't know, 20 minutes, give or take. About 20 minutes. So now what we're going to do is that finishing touch for that eggplant. So I'm going to get our Cuisinart out. And you could always buy some pesto. You don't have to make it, but I'm just going to show you quickly how we do that. Get your Cuisinart out. And I have some basil. I got this at the farm stand also. I'm assuming it's hydroponic this time of year because we are in December. And all you want to do is just kind of, this has been washed and dried, just break those off and toss them without the heavy stems and toss them into the Cuisinart. We're going to have about, give or take about three cups loosely of the leaves. So you're talking roughly 3 cups. You don't have to make that much, and we're not going to use that much today, but it's nice to have left over. It lasts in the refrigerator. If you put a nice layer of oil on it before you refrigerate it, it should last a few weeks and a couple of weeks in the refrigerator. Get rid of that. I need a clove of garlic. So for about I'll move this. For about 3 cups of loosely packed leaves, you want about maybe a clove of garlic. If you were doubling this recipe, maybe 2 cloves. Just bang that on the side, loosen that paper. And then there's a little knotty end on the garlic. I don't know if you can see that. This little knotty end. You probably want to get that off too. I mean, it's going to grind up in the Cuisinart, but we don't need that. Just cut that in half. And I got a little bit of pine nuts here. I wish I could give you a little bit of history or a little bit of background on pine nuts. I'm not exactly sure where they come from. You can use walnuts if you can't find them. I got these at Trader Joe's. They seem to be the best place to buy them. So you want a couple of tablespoons. What this does is it kind of brings the whole thing together. Once these, can I say this? Once they macerate in the food processor, it's the glue that kind of binds this whole dish. But walnuts, almonds will work fine also. But I think you need some kind of a nut. If you have nut allergy, then of course you'll have to leave them out. But this kind of, like I said, brings the whole thing together. And what else do we need? A little bit of nutmeg. Maybe like 1/8 of a teaspoon. You can measure it with a teaspoon, 1/8 of a teaspoon if you have it. If not, just use it. I have the little nut that you can just grate. What else we need? A little bit of black pepper. And of course, as you can see, I'm not measuring anything, but you don't necessarily have to. It's all by eye. Probably like a tablespoon of salt. That's about a tablespoon. And a little bit of grated cheese. About 2 or 3 tablespoons. I know that the cheese has salt, as I always say, but it's kind of a briny salt, and that regular salt, the kosher salt that we use, kind of balances that off. Takes a little bit of brine out of the dish. And we're going to need olive oil, lots of it. We can finish this off. So we want to pulse, not grind yet. Just pulse a little to get it all mixed. And that's where you want to start adding your oil. Probably around 1/2 cup or so till it becomes semi-liquidy. Just a little bit more. That was about 1/2 cup, so probably just a little bit more. You can check that. This is what you're looking for, kind of a liquidy consistency. I know many of you know that this is definitely delicious on top of hot spaghetti or hot linguine. Actually, I didn't really measure that, but as you can see, is that 3 cups that 3 cups of leaves probably only gave us about 6 tablespoons of pesto, so it's not. Just let me clean this off so you can see. You can see that. Seemed like a lot at the beginning, but there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 tablespoons. One way to stretch this is to use some spinach. You could use 2 or 3 loosely packed cups of basil, and then stretch that with a couple of handfuls of spinach if you had to, because the basil is so pungent that, and where the raw spinach is kind of neutral, this kind of takes it over, and that kind of stretch your pesto a little bit. So we're just going to leave this in here till it kind of gels a little more on its own. And we still have a few more minutes left on our chicken parm and on our eggplant parm. So why don't we take a break? And we are back again, and I think we're ready to take our chicken parm and eggplant parm out of the oven. It's been about 20 minutes at 325. Again, remember that everything has been cooked. We fried the chicken, and when we fried the eggplant, we don't want it to go above 325 because we don't want to cook it any longer. It's just cooked. All we're trying to do is gel all the flavors together. And here's our eggplant. Here's our chicken parm. And here are our eggplant stacks. And I'm just going to dress that eggplant up a little bit more. This is, I think I mentioned this on a previous show, that people always ask me, how do you save basil? Well, you really can't save it for an extended period. But what I do is I buy these bags, and I cut the end, when I bring them home, I cut the end of the bag off and the end of the stems of the basil, and I stick them in a lukewarm glass of water. And this is already a week old, and if you look at that, it's like practically, it's still fresh. So all I do is what I do is I leave the bag on. Well, that one's a little bit, we can use that one leaf. But I leave the bag on all week, and you pretty much get a couple of weeks out of this as long as you leave the bag on. Don't ask me why this works, but it does. I have no clue why it works. I wish I could give you an answer. So all you do is, now and then you have to kind of look at it and maybe cut some of those browned ends off. And then you put that back in the water, and this will be good for another week. Give or take, maybe a little longer, just depends. You may have to add a little water after a while. So we got a few leaves here. Just a couple leaves. Just rinse these off quick. And again, get rid of this. Hold on. Bear with me here. Just chiffonade those. And just you just put that over the basil, over the chicken. And to finish the eggplant stacks, you just drizzle a little bit of this on the side. I'm just gonna plate one up if you bear with me. And that's it. Chicken parm and eggplant stacks. That almost looks good enough to eat. But what I love about this is these make a great appetizer. You sit down, you have one of these, and then you have, you don't necessarily have to have chicken parm after that, but it makes a nice presentation. When a lot of times we always serve eggplant as a peasant food, but this gives it a nice little gourmet twist to it. So today, to pair up some wine, my friend Nick Tolopoulos at Old Town Liquors in Burlington so graciously donated a bottle of Pinicoli, which is a wine from the Puglia region of Italy, and it's a 90-plus rating. And I must tell you, I have tasted it. It's really unbelievable, and for the price, it was only $13. And normally in that price range, you don't get something that's in the 90s as far as a 90-plus rating for taste. And also, he also donated a bottle of Chianti Classico by Corsetto, and this has a nice, I've had this before also, it has a nice oaky finish to it. So why don't we just kind of give this a try, and then I think we may be, close to wrapping it up, but I just want to let everybody know exactly what we're up against here as far as these wines, because I want to be a little more specific so our viewers will appreciate it. This has been opened. I already had this open for a while. Wow. This is really good. It has very soft tannins. It's a nice grape raspberry kind of finish to it. It's really nice. I can't believe how soft it is. The soft finish that it has. It's for a 90-plus rating. I can't believe, like I say, it's about $13, and it's really a good value. And this is the Corsetto Chianti. You can taste the wine barrel in that. The oak is really strong. This is a little more tannic, which is that little bitterness you get as you drink it, but it's still good, very good. So before we let you go today, let's just check to see how we did. Maybe I'll just try a little piece of chicken parm. Still very hot, but let's see how that is. That's really good. The sauce has completely soaked into the chicken, and the chicken's so tender. It's really good. And also, as far as the cheese goes, I love this cheese because it's just so neutral and creamy that it's really great in this dish. And let's see how we did on the eggplant parm. If you can see, that's perfectly cooked all the way through. Think that's too big of a bite? Not for the Easy Gourmet. Wow. That is really nice. And the pesto finishes it up. Just, you have that that little bitterness of the eggplant, the creaminess of the cheese, and that nice pesto finish, that fresh finish. Let me just have a little. Wow. I'm gonna have fun once the show is over today. Before we let everybody go today, I just wanted to remind everyone that you can like me on Facebook at the Easy Gourmet, Vinnie Ferlisi, and you can follow me on Twitter on the Easy Gourmet, titled the Easy Gourmet. And again, as we always do, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Frank Vento at the Scoreboard, Woburn. Thank you, Frank. And of course, my friend at Old Town Liquors, Mr. Nick Tolopoulos, who has recently become a grandfather. This is probably James Nicholas's first exposure to television. This is James Nicholas Tolopoulos. This is Nick's grandson. So congratulations to Nick. And you probably, I don't know if you've noticed behind me, there are some Christmas decorations. I want to wish everybody who watch, the viewers of our show, that I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. from the Easy Gourmet. And as always, I like to wrap up every show. Oh, before the year is over, because this is our last show for the year, I'd like to thank our director and camera people, Lauren Coleman and Jen Gata. Thank you for making the show a success. And again, Merry Christmas to all our viewers. Happy New Year. And again, as I always say, I like to wrap up each show, happy cooking.
The Easy Gourmet is sponsored by The Scoreboard Sports Bar and Grill. Come visit us at 15 Middlesex Canal Park in Woburn, 781-897-4000.
Old Town Liquors on 286 Cambridge Street in Burlington off of Route 3A. The purveyors of fine wine, beer, spirits, specialty meats, cheese, and prepared foods.